What's up in War Eagle War Report family? It's your guy Ike Jones. We are back with another morning drop. Today, reacting to Coach Hugh Freeze's press conference he had yesterday, previewing the Arkansas game. So we're going to be in here talking about what we heard from Coach Hugh Freeze, and we definitely want to hear your thoughts and opinions. Y'all know how we do right here, War Report style. Let's drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
Morning drop. It is Tuesday, November the 7th. We are in here this morning. You got Ike Jones, Mike G. Coach Hugh Freeze addressing the media yesterday. Mike G was present there, and we are definitely going to give our thoughts and opinions on the things that we heard from Coach Hugh Freeze. But before we get into the conversation, as always, we want you guys to do the necessary, and that is sharing this video, get some more people involved in the conversation, get out there on social media and be those ambassadors for the War Report. And we always appreciate people for doing that. If you're in here watching, we'd greatly appreciate a like on the video and a subscription to the channel if you haven't done that already. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up. If you are out there in the land of podcasts, we'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Give us that 5-star review and share the podcast audio with somebody so that they can hear it on their travels out there. All of you out there in the land of the Auburn Express, we thank you so much. All right. Mike G, again, you were present at the press conference yesterday with Coach Hugh Freeze. Before we get into some of the specifics of things that he said from clips that we have, just overall impressions of, we don't talk about kind of the demeanor of the coach, right, as he walks into a press conference, but have you noticed anything from just the way that he walks in right now, 2-game winning streak in the SEC versus a 3-game losing streak that he was on before?
Yeah, he's a lot happier when he wins.
Most people are, but just assume. I didn't want to assume that he's in a better mood.
Yeah, look, a couple press conferences ago, somebody asked him about the drop off in production in the second half, and he was like, "Look, let's have an honest conversation."
Right,
be honest
after the Mississippi State game.
Yeah,
listen, I appreciate that's our guy Jacob Goins out there. He asked a similar question in a playful way about a 3-point differential second.
Correct. Yeah, he brought it back up, and Freeze laughed it off, and it was funny to me because everybody knew what he was talking about. Look, he's in a much better mood when they're winning, obviously, as any coach probably would be. He understands what the season is at this point, I think. Asked him some questions about, the happy part, which is the defense.
Mm-hmm.
He responded saying that he is actually hands off with them for the most part. He gets involved on some third down calls. Look, this coach has done his best to be honest with us as media and with the fans. I got a lot of messages during the presser on Twitter about how he talks about kids who mess up. For some people, sometimes I think you have to pick a lane. Like either you want him to be honest and say things, or you don't, especially when he's asked direct questions about things. And I think that's the thing that people miss. When he's asked a direct question, you get a direct answer. And I think that if you're trying to be direct, it's hard to turn that on and off at times.
Yeah.
So
listen, we get similar critiques, man. We get similar critiques, right? Because if we're having a conversation about a particular thing and we're being honest and saying, hey, this stuff was good, but this stuff wasn't so good. Now, all of a sudden it's like, why can't you guys ever just be happy? And it's like, it's not that I'm unhappy. I'm just being honest with how I looked at a particular situation. And it's like, well, yeah, I want you, the kids need to be encouraged. It's like, listen, man, like the coach is out here giving balance to his perspective on something. And I think I would feel a way about it if it were just sometimes or just some people.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter who it is. It's like, I mean, yeah, he did this, but he also did this. So we got to fix that, right? Like he's just being honest about how he feels about certain situations. I don't feel as if he's beating up anybody in the press conferences. I think that he's just allowing himself to understand, yes, this was good. there's still some stuff we got to work on, though.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say that there are some things I do feel like when asked about, he can temper his words a tiny bit.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah,
We've talked about, his need for sometimes some of the messaging to be better.
But it's mostly around recruiting and
Yeah.
the talent level on this team. So when a guy messes up, we all saw it. Peyton threw a pick six. And a question was asked, what did he see there? And he was just like, look, man. He said, Coach, I didn't see the guy. Yeah. I swear I didn't see him. And his response was like,
what do we say? Like, don't throw blind. It's like that. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's move on. Because, I mean, what are you going to do in game? Harp on it? He made a mistake. Better quarterbacks have done that. And he decided to move on. So I think his mood was very even under, I mean, I thought it was a good mix of questions asked to him in this presser. Every once in a while, it feels like they give us more questions sometimes. Some guys get multiple questions in. Sometimes it's just one question and that's it. And then he's out of there. So anytime he's answering multiple questions, it's usually that his mood is good. Yeah. And he's not rushing to the next thing. So good mood, I think, in the presser this week.
Yeah. So one of the things that you just talked about and I want to hit on is just the idea of, his messaging in terms of, recruiting and all that sort of thing. Because we've talked or you've actually commented on several times of like, what are we going to do? And when I say we, I'm talking about kind of if I'm putting myself in the place of a coach, is what are we going to do to set our players up this season to be maximum successful and focusing on this year? And he talked about, or he was asked a question about his message to his team at Liberty going into play Arkansas last year. Right. And so I want to play a clip of him talking about that, and then we'll get into some comments after it.
Yeah, we had come off of a big win against BYU, and I believe it was after an open week that we traveled to Arkansas. The first thing I was concerned about is my experience in Arkansas in November has not been pleasant. The two times we went there when I was at Ole Miss, the weather was atrocious. And I was just thankful that when we went at Liberty, it was actually a nice day. And it appears this Saturday is going to be fairly nice. I tell our teams the truth. And I remember telling them, listen, you're the underdog. You shouldn't win this game. But that's what makes it fun, to go and give it a shot and why you play the game. And you don't have to be better 10 times. You just have to be better that one day. And I can't remember exactly what our theme was that week or anything, but our kids played really hard that day, I know, and stopped their run pretty much. So there's something we need to do this week also.
So the message to his team was, you don't have to be better 10 times. You just have to be better one time, right? And that's something, listen, this isn't me trying to step in and say, listen, this is all we've been trying to say, but it is all we've been trying to say is, I don't really care how much more talented the other team is. It doesn't matter to me. We don't have to be more talented than them every week of the season. We just got to go out there and outplay them today. Right. And I thought that was something that I had not, at least in his outward press stuff. And I don't know what he did at Liberty in press conferences leading up to games. In the press, sometimes he didn't seem to display that same sort of mentality outwardly of, listen, I get it. They're a super talented team, but all we got to do is compete with them this one Saturday. And that's what we're going to go out here and do. Am I reading too much into that? Or I don't know. Is that me just taking something out of context?
Yeah, I don't know. Here's what I would say to that. Hear me out. It seems as if this message has evolved now that he knows the opponents are not as tough. Right. So early in the season, when it was LSU and Georgia, it was like, yeah, better guys than us. And you know what I mean?
Again, I don't know what his locker room message was.
Sure. Yeah. And then now later in the season, we hear about a speech that Cadillac gave. And I'm like, in my head, I was just thinking, man, did he have a speech for LSU? Because y'all could have used some juice in that one. It was, I think he had accurately like discerned what this schedule would be.
Mm-hmm.
He knew the stretch from Texas A&M to Ole Miss was going to be a tough one.
Right.
It did. And I think maybe, and this is just my opinion, I think he could have talked himself into at least one win in that stretch. One, Ike. I'd have been satisfied with one win in that stretch.
Yeah.
Most likely Ole Miss or Texas A&M.
Of those teams, yeah.
Yes.
LSU was. Yeah,
I mean,
Jaden
Daniels is on another level, man. He's Superman this year. But like,
and I mean, to be fair, we had a legitimate shot for Georgia too. So, but yeah.
If I'm talking about talent at the end of the game,
yeah,
right. I think that's what happened at Georgia. At Georgia, the talent gap that he likes to talk about did take over at the end of that game because Brock Bowers went nuts, right. And Auburn had a guy on offense to go nuts like that, or got a quarterback to get him the ball to go nuts like that. And they certainly didn't call it like that until the end of the game. So now over this back stretch, is there a correlation between them limiting Peyton's throws and now suddenly 25 plus throws a game against these worst teams? And I mean, they managed him to a T, Ike, during that stretch, and you still lost every single one of them. I don't know what you accomplished by doing that, quite honestly. Guys weren't getting targets. Peyton wasn't throwing the ball. You got blown out at LSU. You lost every one of those games.
Right.
Now, I don't think how you lost them would affect this backstretch because these teams are really, really bad.
Right.
I just felt like they could have took more shots during that first. They could have opened this offense up a little bit more during that first half of that stretch. And now you're in this stretch, and his tone is changing because he's playing some teams he knows they can beat. And so I don't know about Liberty. I just wish that he had maybe taken that tone some over that first stretch. And some people may be saying, Mike, how do you know what tone he took? Well, listen to what he said to the media
right
before those games. It has looked and felt exactly like what he's talked about all season long. So, I mean, that's my thought on that. It was. I have asked him several times, how do you get your team up for a big game?
Right.
And I will say, man, he has sometimes kind of flippantly answered, like, you hope you don't have to get them motivated for this one. Right. All right. Well, I keep that same energy. What do I say to that?
Right.
Again, I love the honesty, but if I'm taking you at your word, I think that he's kind of talking out both sides of his mouth on this one, depending on the opponent. And I don't know. Like I said, the tone feels a little different. Obviously, when you're losing, it's frustrating, certainly. But we've talked over and over about coaching the team you have, right, and motivating the team you have, and that's what I think maybe could have been done better over that first half of that stretch, particularly when it comes to the messaging you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, no, I mean
that's what came to mind.
Well, I mean, so kind of staying in that same kind of vein of things that he said previously and the way that we want to see this team develop. And again, when I say we, I'm speaking from the perspective of if I was Coach Freeze, having the conversation to the team and coaches about how we want to see our program progress. He talked about playing with a little bit of swagger offensively, right? And having a little bit more something on the offensive edge end that gives you an edge. So let's hear his comments on talking about that for a second.
Yeah, I thought, we played with some confidence and swagger last week, particularly the first half. And then, got off to a fast start and was really optimistic about some of I really felt good about I work hard at explosive plays and the possibilities of those, and really felt good about our chances at having some explosive plays, and we we had some, but it should have been more. And I think the more we're successful at doing that, the more confidence and swagger that our kids will play with.
So, again, I think he went into this game at Vanderbilt saying, we know we can do some things in this game. We actually heard him talk about this in the post of Cal. He was like, look, that game didn't go anything like I thought it was going to. I thought we were going to, do this and do that. I think Vanderbilt looked more like what he thought was going to happen going into that game. But he had remarked earlier in the season that he didn't feel like we were out there, I'm saying he didn't feel like his team was going out there playing with swagger and playing with confidence, but he's starting to see that confidence emerge in the team a little bit. Your thoughts on his comments there about the offensive personality?
I'm going to go back to my previous comment about the opponents.
Yeah.
Right. Man, this is gonna sound like beat up on Hugh Freeze Day, but hear me out. I don't think he did much to help install any personality and swagger over that last stretch. Now you're playing opponents you can beat, and suddenly we played with personality and swagger. Well, yeah, I mean, look what it looked like versus Sanford and UMass. It looked a lot better because those games that you felt like you were going to win. This last two stretch, man, let me tell you something. I cannot remember a stretch of games in the SEC in the last 5 years where I felt Auburn had real in-conference cupcakes. This Mississippi State Vanderbilt back-to-back, man, whew. And both on the road, and they still feel like cupcakes.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Mississippi State was at home, but
right.
Vanderbilt on the road, Arkansas next week, they have not been doing well. Their offense right now is ranked at the bottom of the conference. That's an achievement this year. Ranked below Auburn and Vanderbilt. In terms of yards, I mean, I don't expect them to be able to do much versus this defense. I have the same energy for Arkansas that I had for them going into Vanderbilt. I couldn't see them scoring more than 10 points. Defense gave up 8. So they bested my prediction by 2. And going in Arkansas, I think it will be similar. Now, Arkansas has the ability, it's going to be a little bit more of a raucous environment. You know what I mean? It's not going to be the same environment as Vanderbilt.
For sure.
Like I saw a clip on Twitter of Thorne throwing a touchdown to Fairweather, and you in the back you could see like the scissor lifts that you were talking about. It looked like when I saw it looked like practice footage.
Yeah,
I mean that environment was trash.
Terrible.
They went in there and had a practice.
It was worse than a high school game. Like it was bad.
They went in there and had a practice. Now I don't think it will feel like that at Arkansas. So we'll see how they respond. But by the numbers, this team is not very good either.
Yeah.
Right? So, I think Auburn should be able to win that game by 10 points on talent alone. They have not done anything differently as far as scheme. They have just done more of some of the stuff that they were doing less of earlier in the season.
Absolutely.
We've looked at the film, man. We've looked at this. We talked to every interested party that watches these things. They're not doing anything different offensively. So where's this swagger suddenly coming from that he's talking about? It's not, we found it because we changed the offense up that we did. The only thing I can point to is a little bit more tempo. Right? So let's call this what it is. You found swagger because you're playing bad teams. These are not good teams. This is a winnable stretch. Almost every analyst and expert that watched the first half of the season was predicting Auburn to win the next 4.
Yeah.
5-game losing streak, 4-game winning streak. If you're think about this, right? If you are an expert, Ike, and you just watch this team lose 5 games straight. And now you're willing to go out on a limb and predict that they're going to not only break that, but win 4 games straight. That's not about the team. You're not predicting that team suddenly going to find something. You're looking at who they're playing and saying, oh, those are beatable teams.
Yeah.
So this is losing any one of these games, these games was going to be a disaster. It was. I still think Arkansas right now is borderline inexcusable loss. Given how this season has gone, go up there and win that game, man. They're not a better team than you.
No,
I know
Arkansas is not a better team than Auburn.
They don't have better players. Come on, man. This defense is dominant. Now, we have not had a whole lot of questions about what Ron Roberts is doing, but to say under better time of possession circumstances, they would have performed better against other teams. Against a team like LSU, it was always going to be a little bit of a track meet. They just needed the offense. Our offense would have taken some points off the board for their offense by sustaining drives and giving them one less drive to score. And hopefully you're in it at the end and your defense can pull out, a play, right? Because think about it. When LSU played Bama this past weekend, that's the type of game that they got into. The difference was Bama's offense was able to keep up with theirs.
Right.
With LSU's terrible defense. And then the athletes, again, when things are even, that's when a talent gap might show up. Right? And that was on defense. On defense, LSU has been terrible all year. And it showed up in a big game. There were some controversial calls, but ultimately I looked at it, I was just like, well, they didn't lose because of those calls. They lost because they couldn't stop Alabama's offense.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's the brass tacks of it. They
what does Auburn do that Arkansas can't stop? And you're looking at that and you're just thinking, well, it's not really that they execute anything well. It's just the level of opponent they're playing at this point. This coaching staff, whether they want to admit it or not, they were coaching for next season. And you won't be able to convince me otherwise. They were coaching for next season. And things didn't go their way early. And, they made some miscalculations, I think. Bringing Peyton Thorne in, I think that they thought that he would be better than he has been against Power 5 opponents, right? I think they thought that he would hit the ground running, and admittedly, by this coach's own words in the preseason, when he said why he announced him as the starter earlier than expected, before camp was over, I thought that was a curious move. But the truth is that I believe they planned to start him, and they expected him to win the job. And when he didn't perform to standard in camp, they decided to go that direction anyway, and they paid dearly for it over the first 6 games of that season.
Well, let's get into the QB conversation, because he had comments about the QB rotation as it stands right now. So let's talk about that for a second.
Well, this is what we're going to do offensively, and I believe Peyton's skill sets are the most prepared for what we're doing. It's not a negative toward anybody else. I think when you talk about playing with tempo, setting our protections, throwing accuracy with footballs and understanding coverages, I think he's the farthest along in that. I think Holden had one heck of a week last week, and he can really spin it, and he's probably one that I think he's got a bright future.
All right. So talked about the fact that he feels as if for right now, Peyton Thorne is the furthest along in all of the things that need to get done within the offense and the way that they want to call those plays. And curiously brought up Holden Geriner, who has not really been getting reps before now, as a guy who is making strides. Thoughts on the QB rotation and depth chart as it stands right now, according to what Coach Hugh Freeze is saying?
I love the word that you use there, curiously.
Yeah.
Curiously, what is Auburn? 5-4?
Yes.
5-4? Yeah, 5-4. 9 games into the season brings up the 3rd string quarterback. So that tells me one of 2 things, right?
This is, before you get into this is something, by the way, that I thought should have been happening. I thought that they should have been giving Holden Geriner snaps. If you're going to divide the way that you've been doing the offense, if Peyton Thorne gets hurt, you don't have an arm guy. If you're going to have an arm guy and a leg guy, basically how they've been using the 2 quarterbacks, if you're not giving Holden the opportunity to be your backup arm guy, because listen, Peyton can run a little bit, so he could technically be your backup leg guy if you just really wanted to go that route. Right. I thought Holden should have been getting reps in practice, because his arm, by all accounts, the best in the room. But continue.
Yeah. Man, that's lovely. So 9 games in, now you're bringing up the third string quarterback, which you have gave almost 0 reps in practice this entire season. As a matter of fact, he was getting so little reps. I was told that he asked to work with the scout team just to throw the ball.
Yeah. To get some level of development. Hey, can I get out here and not twiddle my thumbs?
Now, that's not uncommon, and I don't think that's news.
Same thing Eugene Asante did last year on defense. He's like, listen, man, I want to do something.
Yeah,
can I just go be on
I'm
practice?
going to scout team.
Yeah.
Right? So I said that to underscore how few reps he was actually, before somebody gets, how do you know he wasn't getting reps in practice? Well, he went to the scout team to get reps.
Yeah. No, like I said, definitively he was not getting. Listen, it's not a secret. We talked to a bunch of players. Holden Geriner was not getting reps.
There wasn't getting reps in practice.
Yeah.
So again, this for once, this is a coach that you could actually kind of read between the lines on things that he's saying and not saying. To bring up Holden at this point tells me that at least mentally or subconsciously or in any kind of way, he may be moving on for Robbie Ashford. Right? At least for that week he did, because he said that Holden took second team snaps in practice.
Right.
Right? I'm a little off put by the talk of Holden at this point, because the reason that you were kind of using for not playing him or giving a chance this season has been experience.
Right.
Right. So unless he's going to get some real experience, he's gotten practice reps before. He's gotten second team reps before. Yeah, and this will be a question that I ask him. What is the development plan for Holden Geriner?
Listen, we can ask that same question about Holden, about Hank Brown. Like, these are guys that at some point in time, at some point in time, you got to have somebody that you're going, like, you've declared he's the future of my program, right? Are we putting all of our chips in the Walker White basket, or have you already made up your mind you're going to the portal?
Yeah, because I made a statement last week saying I don't think that the quarterback of next year is on this roster.
Correct.
Right. Now, it's not that I think that Holden is not good enough to be QB1. Right. It's that I don't think this staff is going to choose him. At this point, if inexperience is the thing that you're using, how does he get it if you won't play him?
Right.
Or at least give him a real shot. By every single account, he had the best camp of all 3 quarterbacks. People got in their feelings about the quarterback ranking list I put out preseason. And now the coach is coming out 9 games in and talking about all the things that Holden does the best.
He's got a bright future.
He can spin it. He's got a bright future. Yeah, dude, we know. They told us during camp he was the best quarterback. But it still wasn't enough to garner him a shot. And here's what I hate in life in general, not just football, in life. When people use the experience excuse, well, nobody has experience until you get experience.
Correct.
Right? And what we find in college football a lot of times is that coaches are so scared of the experience factor that they will not, even when the less experienced guy outplays the more experienced guy because they haven't seen it in the game, they're unwilling to take the chance to give the inexperienced guy the shot, even though he outplayed his peers in practice and was the most consistent. Think back to Pro Day. Tank and those guys chose Holden to throw to them. When they had to look good, they picked Holden. So, yeah, Coach, we know he can spin it. We've watched him do it. So, and if I were Holden, there's no way he's not evaluating his options right after the season is over. This might be a desperate attempt if you've moved on from Robbie mentally or subconsciously or however. I don't have any information on that. I'm just going based on what I've heard him say. But to try to hold Holden Geriner on this roster in case you miss in the portal again, because they are going to be going back to the portal, and I think they understand.
And you kind of have to.
Yeah.
if you're tying yourself to needing experience and you're not getting Holden any experience, Hank Brown's not going to have any experience. Walker White will not have any experience. The only options you have at this point in time is Peyton Thorne returning for a 6th season, you figuring something out with Robbie Ashford, or going to the portal. If you're going for experience, that's all you got. And I would venture to say it's going to be difficult to get someone with experience that's quality in the portal. Like that's hard. I don't think people like I need to underscore how difficult that is.
Right. Yeah. I think this is
how to get a quality quarterback with experience to transfer into your program. That's not an easy thing to do. Those don't just fall off a truck somewhere and you go pick them up and say,
yeah, like, I mean, when Ewers went to Texas, he had no experience.
The vast majority of quarterbacks, players in general, that will enter the portal will not have experience. If they have experience, then they've had it at some lower level, and they have to prove now that they can be SEC caliber.
It's on the same level of being a Power 5 backup and having no experience in my book.
Right.
Because your experience isn't relative to the competition you're going to be playing. Not even close in most cases. So it is a roll of the dice. Look, man, when they chose Cam Newton to be starting quarterback, right? They never really see him play at the Power 5 level. He went and dominated, at the D2 level out at Blinn. But I remember Chizik talking about in practice, every time Cam would take off running, they were like, would that have been a 5-yard run or an 80-yard run? We don't know. But you know what we're going to do is we're going to roll the dice on this guy. Because the other guys have more experience in their system. And you have to remember, nobody saw that come. Nobody saw Cam Newton coming and being that dude. As a matter of fact, 3 games into that season, I remember against Mississippi State, he threw maybe like 13 passes or something like that. I remember having questions like, I don't know if he can throw the ball well enough for Auburn to keep winning. He improved as the season went on, but you had to have the foresight to say, you know what, this is the guy, and go with him. At some point, a coach has to do that. I'm not saying that Hugh Freeze can't do that. I'm saying he seemingly has shown an unwillingness to do that this year. And if I'm Holden Garner, I'm wondering if that's going to change in the future. Right? At what point do I get a field promotion in this coach's mind? Because if I'm him, I'm sitting there thinking, I've been outplaying this dude that you're starting in practice for months. And he still got the start because of his experience. What happens when you bring the next experienced guy in?
Right.
Now, I'm going to be behind that dude as well. At some point, he's got to show. And I think that this might be the chance to try to, give him something to think about staying, because he's got a lot of leverage here. I mean, he's got the freebie in his pocket. He has not transferred, and he can go to another Power 5 school right after. This season is, I don't know when the transfer portal, I think it opens before bowl game.
Right.
Opens before bowl game, and he can get in spring someplace else where they will give him a serious shot to win the job. And some I'm telling you, there is some team at the Power 5 level that will take Holden Garner and take a chance on him immediately. And say, we're committing to him as our guy.
Listen, as much as people have been raving about his arm talent, there's no chance that somebody sitting there with a dud quarterback that they, will make it work, and they won't say to themselves, let's go take a flyer on a kid that we know can spin it and got an offer to play at an SEC school and see what we can do with it. It'll happen. And he had offers out of high school that he could have taken at other schools as well. Like, this kid got offered by Georgia, right? So it's not as if other schools that are quality programs haven't looked at Holden and said, oh yeah, we recognize he's got some ability.
Yeah, for sure. Talent evaluation is tough, man. I think it's tough. I think that it's easy to say in hindsight, of course they played Cam Newton, right? But what had he shown at the Power 5 level to give you the indication that he would be that dude in the SEC? The answer is nothing. You had nothing but practice footage to base that on, right? And a junior college national championship or whatever, right? But again, if you watch that tape, it was literally like he was playing Pee Wee League,
right?
right? We had no clue. And you know, it was nuts. Like every analyst doubted him every game almost till the end of the season. Do you remember the comments that Lou Holtz made when we played LSU that year? He said, no, this defense is going to hit him like he's never been hit before. And he went on this whole rant about how Cam was finally going to play a real defense, and he stiff arm passer. Yeah. Like there's no way. Like, I mean, even Chizik talks about how Cam was just it was beyond what they expected.
Right.
Go back and look up Chizik's comments after and read his book. Cam Newton completely blew away every single expectation they had, but they did have to. He talks about the chance that they took, and in projecting and saying, you know, hey man, this is the guy we're going to go with. And so again, I'm not saying Holden is Cam Newton, right? I'm just saying, look, man, at some point you got to be willing to play a guy who you don't have a ton of tape on. Especially when he's out playing the other dudes in your practices.
Right.
Come on, man. Holden, you know, for the kids that are here now, and this is the issue that I've had with the recruiting message, and we'll move on after this, is that there was a team to coach this year, and there were kids that needed a shot this year. And I think when Hugh Freeze looks back on it and when he gets the feedback after the season, he's going to realize, man, he could have done a better job for some of these kids that were on his team now. All right. I would not be surprised to see a mass exodus to the portal from this team. Some fans will say good riddance. I'm going to say it's a shame because some of those guys are going to be good guys. And I'm not talking about character. I'm talking about good football players that you're probably going to lose to the portal based on how the season went. So
yeah, it's definitely going to happen. That's kind of the climate that we're in college football.
I was expecting Holden to be one of them, Mike. I was.
I still expect Holden to be one of them. I mean, there's got to be a lot of conversations about what the future of him is with this program. If that's going to change, if my opinion of that is going to change between now and when the portal opens, I don't see a path for him getting playing time the way that it's been going so far. And as a guy who's losing eligibility every season, just kind of sitting there, not being developed, I don't understand why he would want to continue.
They're going to turn over a lot of this roster, man. I mean, you've got you and I call 26 guys or something that have no eligibility left. So there's a third of your roster going right there, right? And then you've got another set of guys who are sitting there with this free transfer per the new portal rules,
right?
That are going to be looking at their options. So we'll see if NIL money starts flying. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, but how much NIL money can Holden garner right now without having had any playing time?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing. I think that it's going to be after the perfect set of circumstances. They're going to have to miss in the portal. And there's no guarantee that you're hoping he won't be gone.
Right. You're going to hope his patience will get him to that place because there's no guarantee he's going to sit around and wait on that. So anyway, let's get into the comments from the people. We definitely want to hear from them. Before we do, we want to get a quick word from our show sponsor today, which is one of our favorites, Manscaped. You guys know that we love Manscaped because gentlemen across the nation, we got an urgent message for you. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the brand that took your balls to space is now launching them into the ultrasphere, introducing the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. We've heard us talk about it before, but every man knows how scary it is when you're trying to get that below the waist close shave. And that's why we've trusted Manscaped with all of our sensitive areas. Manscaped's 5th generation trimmer features 2 next-gen interchangeable skin-safe blade heads, and standard trimmer blade for taking a little off the top with a new foil blade to go for that smooth finish where your heart desires. Get 20% off and free shipping with code RAPPORT at Manscaped. That's 20% off and free shipping with code RAPPORT at manscaped.com. Your balls have been through enough. It's time to go ultra with Manscaped. All right. A lot of heated conversations happening right now in the comment section. We appreciate you guys for at least being civil in the live chat, even if you're disagreeing here, but I definitely want to go through some of these as quickly as we can because there are a lot of comments coming in right now. If you haven't liked the video, go ahead and do that before we get into this, though. All right, let's get this conversation started off with Prince Major, who says, any bets on Holden being the starter next year?
Yeah,
I'd say shot. That is
no shot. Yeah,
3%. I won't give 0%. It's a very low probability that Holden Geriner would start the 2024 season as Auburn's QB1. I just don't see it happening. I don't even see him being on the team at this point right now. That could change, so don't, clip this. And then when he starts next season, you're like, you told me back in November of last year, this was never going to happen. It could change. As of today, you're asking me the question. I don't see it happening.
Right.
Chris S says, not calling for a QB change, but what's the deal with Holden? Another Holden question. Who do y'all think? Why do y'all think he hasn't gotten a chance? Coach Hugh Freeze seems complimentary of it.
Again, it's very simple experience, right?
Yeah.
He's the least experienced on the field. I mean, he went with the two guys who have actually started games at the Power 5 level. But, the way you get to start at the Power 5 level is for them to play you at the Power 5 level. That's how Robbie got his first start, right? Like, I mean, he was splitting time with TJ to start last season, and then TJ got hurt, and it wasn't a cold first start for him, right?
Yeah.
They've just got to be willing. Other than that, injury, which you don't wish on anybody.
Yeah, I mean, so all right, let's play scenarios here, right? Again, not wishing injury on anybody, but that's the only way that he gets into a game absent of a blowout versus New Mexico State and or Arkansas. He gets to play with injury a portion of the game versus Arkansas. He starts New Mexico State and he starts the Bama game. He's got to play so lights out in those 3 games and the bowl game before this changes to a high probability of him being the starter next year, in my opinion, based upon how the coaching staff has valued experience thus far. Like, and I base this almost completely on the fact that they have been doing next to nothing in practices leading up in these first 9 games to groom him as a potential backup plan. Like, I don't see a scenario where he goes from not having any experience at all and no backup experience up until week 10 and then playing his way into a potential starter to start next season. Like, I don't know. I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I find that very low probability.
Yeah, I agree. I find it a low probability as well. Yeah.
Michael Carlile says, I thought it was interesting that he discussed setting protection, recognizing coverage, and game management when in discussing QB play. I get a sense this is where Robbie is lacking.
Well, he talked about the protection not being good. He also talked about running backs missing blocks.
Yeah. So let me comment on this in 2 different ways. That question was specific to how he felt like the offensive line was protecting in the game for Vanderbilt. And he was saying, hey, we were lacking in a couple of different ways. And it wasn't just the offensive line. The running backs missed some stuff. Peyton Thorne was supposed, he's like, man, we had the first 3rd down. The safety comes down, and they rotate and they do this. It's like, I know you got to see this. And they didn't shift the protection, right? So he was talking, that wasn't really a glowing endorsement of Peyton Thorne in that statement. So
I don't think it was about Thorne at all. I think
it wasn't. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, so this is, I don't know why the differentiation was brought there for Robbie in this particular instance. What he did say about the quarterback conversation was he felt like Peyton was the furthest along in terms of all of the things that they're asking to do. And he mentioned specifically accuracy with the football, right? So he felt like Peyton Thorne was a more accurate thrower and an understanding of the overall concepts within how they want to run the offense with the tempo, right? So I don't think it had much to do with setting protections and recognizing coverages, because if we're being honest, and I'm always going to try to be honest here, Peyton Thorne hasn't done a heck of a good job at that this season, of recognizing coverage, setting protection, and managing the game. They've actually gone the opposite direction and managed him as if he's someone who doesn't do this well. So they're taking a lot of the thinking part out of it for him, if we're being honest about what we're doing here. So I don't think that was the separator necessarily. I think it actually has more to do with accuracy and really, and listen, again, if I have to be honest, Robbie didn't do himself any favors by not not
running the play.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't do yourself any favors in that situation. So
I think that
I'm gonna put a guy in that I know is going to do exactly what I told him he's supposed to do.
Yep.
Consequences be damned. And I can live with the mistakes if he's making a mistake. But if you're just gonna not run the play, then I don't know what I can do with that.
when he mentions that, and in the next game he gets like 2 reps, it makes me think that was like a punishment. He was being punished for that, and I'm not saying he should have been punished for that. I'm just saying, like, if I'm looking for an explanation, right? Like, maybe that's it. I don't know. Like, yeah. So, lots to be said there, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out this week.
Yeah. Michael Carlile again says, disagreeing with Mike G, having Holden in the system for an extra year, learning the scheme makes him in much better shape to take over next season.
That's a very logical take, right?
Yes.
I don't think they're looking at it like this, though.
Correct.
Right.
Again,
yes.
This is my opinion as a person who has never, not once, coached a single game of anything. If your plan is to groom a guy in a system to take over the next year, you want to get him as many reps in practice as possible, just in case you need him this year before you think you do, and definitely so he's ready to come in and do that next year. And just learning the playbook and sitting there at practice isn't really preparing you for that. You kind of have to be taking QB2 reps, or hey, all right, let me just get in here on, yeah, he knows the playbook, but he doesn't have any camaraderie with the receivers. Like, he hasn't learned how to do any adjustments on, like, none of that stuff.
I think sometimes you find yourself as a player in a situation where there's just not much you can do.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's kind of, his hands are tied. What is he supposed to do?
Tied, right. Like, he could, he would have to go like 20 for 20 every practice, dropping dimes with no drops by the way. You know what I mean? If it has to be absolutely perfect, even when you're already outplaying the other guys, then what else can you do as a player? What else can you do? You can only be responsible with the reps that you get. And from what we understand, he has been that. So, if I'm going based on that, I just don't know what else he could do. I get what Michael Carlile is saying here. Like, yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, that makes sense when you're grooming guys, but I don't think they're grooming them. And I think it may be a little too late to start grooming him and make him believe that he's got a legitimate shot for next year.
Right.
Don't waste another year of this kid's time, man, if you got no intention on playing them. And they're going to go to the portal, and
that's going to be the difficult portion is if they go to the portal and try to get somebody. He's
out of here. Yeah. There's no way I'm sticking around to compete with another more experienced guy that you're bringing in. That's it. Yeah,
he's in a tough spot, man. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much being in the system matters if you're not getting the reps.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I guess. So, yeah, you maybe know the playbook, but if you're not getting the reps, then, maybe that's what they were trying to do over these last few games. Who knows?
Yeah, I do not know the answer to that. Let's see. Ant Robinson. So does a competitor supposed to not playing 2 snaps in 2 games, people not liking him after what he did last year and coaches giving up on him would feel some type of way too? So this is the commentary on Robbie Ashford.
Yeah, his demeanor on the sideline. Like,
I've seen this a lot actually on
social media. I think this is much ado about nothing.
And I don't understand it. I don't understand what you expect Robbie to be doing on the sidelines.
Did you have that energy for Peyton Thorne when he was sitting with nobody around him earlier this season on the sideline?
Of course not.
And I'm not saying that Ant this is not a check on you.
Yeah, this is not.
I'm just saying, like, I mean,
Ant is actually asking people, like, what did you expect of a guy who wants to be in there competing
correct
and not getting an opportunity?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm laying all out here today, right? Peyton Thorne threw an absolute shit fit when he had to all but split snaps with Robbie Ashford versus Ole Miss. Went nuts, right? From all accounts, he was not the best teammate that week. May have gone to the coaches and said, "Hey, what's up with this?" The next week, he's playing more snaps, coupled with the fact that the quarterback that you sent out there, right, first, maybe didn't do exactly what he was told to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, these guys are competitors. I agree with him. Like, what do you guys expect from these guys? They're human. If I were Peyton, that's how I feel too, man. I moved my life down here. And they all think they're the best.
Right.
And we debate about who's better than who, but in these guys' minds, they all think they're the best.
Yeah.
So
And listen, this goes down the line for literally every position. It's just amplified at the quarterback. But
yes,
there are guys who are not happy in every single room that the camera never pans in their direction that you could find on a sideline with, man, I want to be out there playing. Right.
Yeah.
Marcus Harris actually talked about this. If you saw a recent clip on social media, they highlighted now the way he dealt with it, I think, is the appropriate way, which is why I think it's really great that they gave the highlight. But they highlighted him and his mom's relationship and how he wasn't happy at Kansas because his mom was flying to games, every single game. She'd watch his little brother play in Montgomery, and then she'd on Friday night and then find a way either Friday night or Saturday morning to fly to wherever Kansas was playing. And she'd be spending all this money and never see him get into a game. And it made him upset, but it made him work harder. He's like, all right, I got to figure out what I need to do to get in there and play. Now, it's very different for a defensive lineman because they rotate a lot more. Now, imagine that being you and you're a quarterback and there's only one guy that's ever going to get in the game. And this is not, and listen, yes, she is a friend of our program, Melanie Ashford. This has nothing to do with me I haven't talked to her about this, but how would you feel if your mom was coming to every single game that you suited up for and you're never getting an opportunity to play?
Yeah.
You'd be mad.
A lot of players feel like that.
Right. I'm saying, but this is not limited to Robbie. I don't get why this gets amplified for Robbie as if he's some bad teammate. Well, that's how you're going to feel.
That's how you're going to feel, and again, everybody thinks they're the guy. Whether they are the guy or not, that's why we have a show to debate that stuff.
Right.
But ultimately, I just try to see it from their minds. The reason we never said anything about Thorne's fit before is because it doesn't matter, dude. Like, he should be upset that reps are being taken from him.
Right.
Whether it's justified or not, like, that's a whole different issue to me from how a player should feel about losing reps in practice and especially in games. They all should be upset about it. I would be concerned if they weren't upset.
Yeah.
If you don't care that you're losing reps, right.
Especially when the team isn't winning games.
Yeah. I'm just saying, it just seems like they're talking about it on one end and not on the other. So somehow every time Robbie has what I'm going to call a human moment, it's a storyline. Robbie Ashford smirks for 2 seconds, tonight at 6. And for the other guy, I don't know. And maybe this is a critique, like maybe one guy is doing it more privately and we're hearing about it. And, we hear a lot of stuff. And then one guy's doing it more publicly, so more people are seeing it. Who knows? Like, all I'm saying is it's human. It happens for both, and it's human. So in my book, it's not something that should be really held against him because the other dude's doing it too. Like, now, in a perfect world, neither of them are doing it.
Right.
But I just don't know. I just don't know how there's not space to be human here when you put your heart and soul into something and it doesn't work out.
Right.
Right. Like, you and I know that feeling, to put your heart and soul into something, your everything you got into something, and to have it not work out the way that you planned. It's disappointing, man. And sometimes it's hard, as he grows up and matures. Well, I think what I was like at his age, I don't know that I would have handled it that much better. I don't know
if I would have handled it well. At my big age of 42, if I would handle it well. I'm sorry. I just don't.
Right.
Like, and I think that I've grown to be a very mature person. There are just certain things where if you put that level of effort into it, right? Like, something not working out, okay, all right, you move on. There's a different level of effort and commitment it takes to being a D1 collegiate athlete, right? We talked to him about on the fireside, right? Like, all the summer workouts in the spring and injury you're fighting through and dealing with all the outside noise. You battle through all of that just for somebody to give you a shot to get out there and play football. And you're watching that actively dwindle in front of. Yeah, that's disappointing, man. I'm gonna be sad when the camera pans past me on the sideline. I'm gonna wish I was out there playing. I am sorry. And actually, no, I don't apologize for that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be ecstatic that our team is winning. I wish I had a part in that W, though. I wish there was some role for me in that win. And I don't think that that's a crazy thing for a person to have happen to them as a human being. And any narrative surrounding that opposite of that is kind of like, that's disingenuous, man. Like, I don't know that you're being a genuine person if you think that there's something wrong with that. I don't know. Again, whatever. We're going to get out of here, man. We've been out here too long. It's supposed to be a quick drop, and we're out here having philosophical conversations about life. Make sure that you check out the sponsor of the morning drop. That is rogueshop.com. They are always bringing you this great content every morning. Use code REPORT when you go out there. If you have any anxiety, stress relief, you need to sleep at night because it's bothering you that Robbie Ashford was sad on the sideline, go to Rogue Shop, man, and they can have something that for whatever ails you out there. We are going to be back at you guys tomorrow with another drop talking about the Arkansas game a little bit more. Before you get out of here, like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure that you share the content with some people out there. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.
Drop.